Hello legends and super legends, welcome to Veloharmony. Today I'm going to be talking about how to consider training when you're not well. I'm using a source here, so I have a lot of exposure with this, but I wanted to get something fairly current. The site called ilovebicycling.com, and there was an article here that had a lot of humor in it that kind of hit the main spots. I'll read it and then I'll go ahead and explain what this is about. So I'll paraphrase. They say doctors often say that a cold lasts 7 days without treatment and a week with it. I hope you got the joke there. A cold runs its course. There's no point going to the doctor unless something serious is going on. But seriously, the cold is the most frequently occurring illness worldwide. And as cyclists, you're probably very aware of that. How to battle common cold while cycling is a double-edged sword. Too much riding can initiate or make a cold worse. Just the right amount of cycling can help you from getting a cold in the first place. So I'm not going to talk. I will put the link for the article down there for those of you who want to read the whole article, because it talked about the definition of a cold and riding the cold and damp. But what I want to focus on is the things that really relate to what we're dealing with when we're on the bike. So it says battling the common cold while cycling. Training hard on your bike makes you perform better on the bike. But a tough session can actually compromise your immune system, leaving you more vulnerable to colds. Recent studies show that there are physiological changes in the immune system that happen when a person exercises. So what they're talking about is if you go and do a long session or a very hard session, you need to stay away from people who are sick to avoid catching stuff, because a few hours after that session, your body is in a diminished capacity as far as your immune system. So you're more susceptible to catching cold. So a lot of cyclists, and runners and other people think when somebody says, dress warm or you will catch cold. Well, how that translates is if you don't dress warm enough and you go out there, you put your body in a situation to where it's under more stress. So now it's got to constrict blood vessels and do other things to keep your core warm while you're trying to exercise. So now you got two stresses or more on your body. Well, that affects your immune system and its ability to fight off diseases. So what ends up happening is that it's not that you're more susceptible to getting sick when it's cold. It's just that when the weather's cold, more people are indoors, generally. So you're around other people. You've been outside acting like a hero, not wearing enough stuff. You got your knees all uncovered because it's 57 degrees or whatever, 13, 14 C, and you're splitting hairs. And let's say you didn't dress warm enough and you went out, you hammered yourself with the boys and you all had a good time. But when you got to the convenience store, because you weren't dressed well enough, you had to spend more time inside. We literally lived that with the guys we used to ride with last year. They would dress so lightly that when we stopped, they had to stay inside the convenience, so they couldn't stand outside. Well, what happens is this. You already stressing your body, so you've weakened your immune system during the ride. Then you go stand next to the clerk. What if the clerk's got a cold? What if the other guy's got something, all you huddled inside? That's what it's talking about. Okay, so the biggest things I wanted to cover on this video, is that if you're having a head cold, let's say you got some sinus problems or whatever, or you've got like a light congestion, anything from the neck and up, sore throat, whatever. If it's from the neck and up, you can exercise. But that's not the day to go and set your personal record. That's not the day to ride 7 or 8 hours or even 5 hours. Do a short ride. Listen to your body. Listen to how you feel. And you know what? Even if it's from the head up and you don't feel like riding, don't ride. Since Saturday, I have not been on the bike because I've been dealing with an earache that needed to run its course. And I felt like I was better off giving my body the chance to fight the infection. I'd already taking the antibiotics and whatever, but it still needed to run its course because my research indicated that once your ear is infected, it affects your eardrum. And so your eardrum has to heal and all of that. So I wasn't feeling up to even getting on the trainer. So I used what little energy I had to do my normal work that I normally do. dealing with the athletes that I coach and so forth, and just decided that I'm not going to ride till I feel like myself again. That's okay too. But the main thing I want to stress here is, if you're on the fence between I feel okay, I just have a sore throat, or I just have a stuffy nose, go for a ride. But take it easy. Zone 1, zone 2. If you hook up with people and they want to go fast, let them go. Nobody wins a group ride. That was not your goal. Your goal was just to get out and ride your bike. You weren't out to race anybody that day. You didn't go to a USCF race and buy a license or to say I'm racing today. That was not your goal. So keep that in mind when you go out. And that's why I always tell people nobody wins a group ride. Everybody at a group ride has a reason for being there. Some people just there to socialize. Some people there just to get out. Some people there to get miles in their legs for something later in the season. So if somebody gets dropped and you patting yourself on the back, that means nothing. You need to compete against yourself. What did you do yesterday versus today? Not against somebody else. Not till both of you get to an event and say, yeah, this is our goal for the season. Then you're racing. Because even the pros, when they go to races early in the year, they got different goals. There are races where Chris Froome just sits in and spins because he's getting ready for July. He doesn't care what happens in March. He might test himself on 1 or 2 stages, and sometimes he ends up winning those races while he's testing himself. I'm using that as an example to let you know that every ride, every group ride, every Grand Fondo has a goal for everybody that's going in there. Quit worrying about the other people. Focus on what you're trying to accomplish that day on your bike, whether it's just by yourself and with a group or whatever it is. And don't hammer yourself when you know you got a sore throat, head cold, whatever's going on. If you get dropped or you choose to let the group go, that's fine, because your goal is to just get out and clear your sinuses. Now, if the issue is below the neck, whenever possible, do not ride. Whether you got a pain in your chest when you breathe, or you got bronchitis, or whatever kind of ailment you're having, you definitely want to make sure, first of all, you've seen a doctor, because we guys are real bad about not seeing doctors. You need to go ahead and make sure you check it out and make sure you know what's going on. A lot of the doctors will charge you even though they can't help you. They will charge you for an office visit and tell you, well, you can just take some painkillers for the discomfort. It's going to have to run its course. But even that is better. At least you know what's going on. I have a problem with that because the doctors, a lot of times, like with my earache, there's nothing they could do. They gave me antibiotics, so I guess I paid for that. And I actually didn't have to see a doctor for that because my wife already had the prescription to, I think it's called Bactrium or whatever it was, the same antibiotic, so we didn't need to buy any. But I needed to know what was going on, and I got more information on my own research than from the doctor. So I'm not pushing doctors by any chance, but I don't want you to disregard them. You need to know what's going on, especially if you're continuing to feel bad. If you're feeling better, then whatever you're doing, you keep doing it, because nobody knows how you feel but you. And that's how you gauge it. So my reason for staying off the bike this week was there was a lot of drainage from my ear, which is consistent with the pressure that had built up when the infection initially happened. Mucus was in something called the eustachian tube, and it has to drain out. So the eardrops caused that to happen. Well, while that was going on, there was a lot of throbbing headache going on. So I had to take a little bit of Advil or whatever. So I did not feel like myself most of the week until maybe yesterday. So if you don't feel like yourself, don't ride. Or if you ride, take it easy if you want to. So I wanted to stress that. So be cautious. I'm going to summarize by reading something from this article here that I think kind of hits the nail on the head. It talks about moderate cycling. It says Tim Noakes, who is a professor in exercise and sports science at the University of South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa, he says that mild to moderate exercise prompts your immune system to release a protein called endogenous pyrogen, which increases your body temperature, making it more hostile to invading bugs. So light exercise keeps the bugs away. And it also causes your immune system to produce more interferon, or protein that is active against viruses. And it also increases the activity of killer white blood cells. I will list all of these in post-production so you can actually see them, but the article will be in the description for those of you who want the details. So the combined effect of these three proteins they mentioned and your cells, they end up reducing the risk of athletes developing an infection. They didn't say eliminate, it said reduce. This gives rise to the concept that mild to moderate levels of physical activity enhance your immunity, whereas high level of training and competitive stress increases the risk of infection. The point I want to make is if you've been riding hard, don't hang around people right away when you come home. Give yourself a couple of hours or so to recover. Drink your recovery drink, shower, clean, go through your routine. Avoid the family right away. I do that consistently, and my family is aware of it. I've explained that to them. You know, the reason is that especially I have little kids, if they have bugs and you come down from a hard session, you're more apt to be easily infected by that. Or if you went outside, you didn't dress enough, you know, you had on regular shorts and an arm warmer, and it ended up being colder than it was. So your body worked harder. So even though you made it through the ride, when you get home, you better go take a hot shower and get your body temperature back up to where it should be before you start socializing so that you don't pick up stuff. So don't be the tough guy who wants to wear the least possible amount of garments. Yeah, it looks really cool, but guess what? You're the guy who probably gonna be catching the bug at the stop. When we stop at the convenience store, you get in there, anybody got something? You're more eligible for those bugs to attack than the guy who's in full tights, balaclava, whatever he needs to stay comfortable while you're trying to tough it out with a light cotton cap and nothing on. So just keep that in mind. You know, those of you who live in areas like California where you can ride, on one ride you can go from the coast and it's cool, and then you go inland and it's hot. They know that. They have to carry stuff. They carry stuff that they can pull off when they get inland. But when they're coming back or coming down those mountains, they put them back on. That doesn't mean that you're not tough. What it means is you're saying, I don't want my body to waste energy on trying to keep me warm. I want to use my energy to get a workout. That's what it means when you dress right. You know, I cannot stress that enough. So, you know, I go on rides here. Forget about riding here in Houston. Right now, today it was like 34 in the morning. That's cold. I'm watching people getting out of their cars in just a shirt and running into the school to drop off kids. Now, thankfully, the kids they were dropping off had jackets on and everything. They were dressed right. But what example is mom or dad setting when you're dressing poorly, but then making your kids wear jackets? So they're looking at you because kids, they look at what you do, you know? So I always walk my girls sometimes, 1 or 2 days a week. Instead of dropping them off at the door, I walk them in. And so we're walking casually, talking because we're all dressed warm. Whereas mom is running and pulling the little kids along. And, what if your car breaks down? What are you going to do then? I mean, I know people up north in Minnesota, other places, they keep blankets, flares, all kinds of crap in the truck just in case. People running around here acting like, Houston's too big. Nobody can get to you immediately. Stuff happens. So anyway, I'm getting a little off topic, but it just bugs me when I see people not paying attention to the necessary details, then want to complain when they have problems. You out there running around, the next place you go, somebody might have the flu and give it to you. Then you bring it home, give it to the whole family. That's what happens this time of year. Everybody's indoors, So as soon as my girls get home, the first thing they do is wash their hands. I don't want any bugs coming in here because being sick to me is a waste of time. Anyhow, cyclist versus sedentary individual. Gentleman named Mike Gleason, professor of exercise biochemistry. He sums it up like this. Athletes are not necessarily at greater risk of catching colds, apart from when the athlete participates in very prolonged, fatiguing endurance sessions or competitive events when the immune system becomes temporarily depressed. And this can increase the infection risk. In short, during a particularly hard training week, and especially straight after an intense session, you are more susceptible to catching a cold. That was exactly what I was talking about. You stay away from people. Stay away when you get home after a hard session, recover, so you keep yourself healthy. For people who are not professional athletes, it is sensible to avoid any hard exercise when you have cold symptoms, and to only restart your hard exercise when the symptoms start to get better. It is not essential to stop exercise altogether, but any training session should be shorter and less intense than usual. So for me, I was like, there's no point in me riding this week. I felt like crap every day, dealing with this drainage in my ear. All I did was I took a couple of Advil for the pain because it was just all pressure. What's the point of me getting on the bike feeling terrible? I've been riding consistently for the last year. I can take a week off. I had just finished the Rafa Festive 500. That's in the bank. So now once I'm 100%, I can build back up. So based on how I feel today, I'm looking forward to the group ride this weekend, and that should be a lot of fun. So you got to gauge it like that. You have more time to ride. There is no reason to feel like you're missing something. Even if you had planned to do a big race or a big ride and you get sick, you're going to have to adjust your plans based on what's going on with you. That's the biggest thing I want to stress here. And they talk about above or below the neck. Common knowledge has often relied on a simple practice. Continue training if your symptoms are above the neck, and taper off or stop if symptoms are below the neck. But he said it depends on the level of what you're training, your level. So if you're a pro, sometimes you got to please the sponsors, but you still have to listen to your body. So the point I want to stress here is no one can tell you how you feel. So you need to pay attention to how you feel before you go out on every training ride. If you plan to do a hard session and you get out there and you feel crappy, sit in. If it's still too hard, let them go. Because something's going on with you. You don't need to announce to them. Nobody really cares. Only an idiot cyclist is going to say, oh, we dropped him. Because he's a moron. Because every cyclist who's worth anything has been dropped or will be dropped at some point. Unless he's not riding with the right group or he has no goals or whatever. It does not really matter. People get dropped for different reasons. Some people choose to not ride that hard that day. Some people choose to pull out. You don't know what's going on with them. So, dropping somebody does not mean you're a champion cyclist. You get to be a champion cyclist as you improve against your prior levels, your prior accomplishments. That's how you grade yourself. When these guys are training for the tour, Chris Froome is not training versus Quintana. Chris Froome is training against Chris Froome from last year. So when they say my numbers are right, that's what he means. The numbers that he can achieve at each zone and the different levels from the meters and all the gadgets they have. It's his numbers. Because he knows if he's firing right and he's at his best, that's the best he can do. So keep that in focus as I wrap this up. Just make sure that if you don't feel good, take it easy. Even though you plan not to. Back off, change the plan, and enjoy the bike. And listen to your body and find out what's wrong so that you can understand yourself, because it will help you know how to train better. Okay? With that, I'm going to wrap it up. And no matter what, get your K's in.